Hello, Jill Whittaker from HIT Training. Thank you so much for joining me for an episode of Hospitality Talks. What a pleasure it is to see you. For those people who don't know who you are, who have obviously been walking around the industry with their eyes shut, can you please explain who you and who HIT Training are, please?
Hi Katie, lovely to see you and looking so well. I'm Jill and I'm the Managing Director of HIT Training. We are an organisation who we largely do apprenticeships. That's what we're known for mostly in the hospitality industry. All of my staff come from the industry and we train them to be trainers, and most of our apprenticeships are a minimum of 12 months long. That's what we do largely all the way across the whole sector. So everything from pubs and casual dining and even sort of takeaway type venues, all the way through to high-end 5-star hotels and Michelin-starred restaurants and all that sort of good stuff. But yeah, we're highly integrated into the industry, and that's where our client base is, and we love it.
Well, who doesn't love this industry? So tell me, Jill, when this, I mean, obviously with all of those apprentices that you've got out there, all the training that you're doing, what was the initial impact of the coronavirus situation for HIT Training and in the particular hospitality industry?
I think for us it's kind of hit a little bit slower than it has for the rest of the industry. It took a while for the government to get their head around advice as to employers as to what they could do with people who were on apprenticeship programs, whether they were allowed to continue to train when they were furloughed, all that sort of good stuff. But it's kind of in the DNA of HIT Training that we don't wait for someone to tell us what to do. We basically look at the situation and we try to do what we think is right, because fundamentally at the end of the day, you know, beat me up for doing the right thing if you like. But that's where I'm going to start from. So what we said to all of our clients was, look, we're going to carry on working with your learners. We're going to carry on supporting them. We're going to move all the face-to-face interventions that we used to do on a one-to-one basis in the workplace. We're going to move that online. And initially, a lot of our employers that we work with were like, "Oh, do you think that'll work? You know, maybe we'll put people on breaks in learning. Maybe we'll, while they're off, maybe while they're not working, we'll kind of come and take them off the program. Well, let's give it a shot." And it's been extraordinary. We have had less than 1% of our learners have dropped off the program because they've been furloughed. And bearing in mind, you know, we represent the industry. 80% of people are furloughed in the industry at the moment. Almost all of our apprentices are on furlough. There's a few that work in the sort of associated sectors where they're working in contract catering in care or in the NHS, who are still like very full on. But the vast majority are now furloughed, and they're going hell for leather because they're taking the opportunity to do something that they see as being a useful thing to do at the moment. It gives them a bit of personal value, but it also they feel as though they're helping to get things ready for when it's time to go back. So it's that actual engagement has been phenomenal. And there's been some stuff that we kind of, you know, you have these belief systems in your business, right? We've all got our own like belief systems.
Values and beliefs, yeah.
And absolutely. And one of our beliefs was you just couldn't do it as well online as you could do it face to face. And I got a call from the executive chef from a very large catering organisation last week to say that he'd been on one of our interactive online workshops at a chef academy. So basically there were 30 people learning how to do bread and dough. Which is quite a specialised thing. A lot of chefs don't even do that very often, you know.
Everyone thinks they're a baker now, remember?
I think you'll find you're speaking to the baker.
I've resisted the sourdough so far, but my husband seems keen to start it now, so I do hope this lockdown finishes soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, a bit of happenstance, but I got my sourdough started going probably about 6 months ago. So ours is just amazing, and I'm making so many different bread. Don't get me started on that, Katie. We've only got 2 minutes. But but they, you know, so we're getting them actually doing their learning and doing a full day of learning, and we plan it as if it was, you know, as if you were in a kitchen environment, you know, on your actual training day. Whereas then we can only do 12 people at a time. Now 30, 40, 50, right. It's viable because we just, however many people we've got booked onto the session, we make sure that we've got a member of training staff for every half a dozen. So that they've got somebody, if they go off, if there's 30, we'll set up 4 separate breakout centres within the Zoom.
Right.
So they can go off and have 2 people working with them, and it's just extraordinary. So what you can do is amazing, and I guess that's the other bit of our DNA. We're just trying to do the right thing for the industry and do what we can do. There's no point. There's just no point focusing too heavily on what you can't do, is there? It's like, let's just make the most of it while we are where we are, and when we come out of the other end, hopefully all of our lovely clients will remember that we were there for them.
Yeah.
And we are, to some extent, we're the only people. My guys are sometimes the only people that some of our apprentices actually see, some of our learners actually see from one day to the next. They're stuck in their own little flat, in their own 4 walls, or stuck at home with their family. And not everyone's as lucky as me to have a garden.
Yeah.
So sometimes that their escape is that conversation that they have with their trainer. The relationships that are being built up there are just great. So that bit of it is fantastic. And we were, another bit of happenstance, we recognised a few years ago, when the whole Brexit vote happened, that our staff come from the same pool of people as our clients' staff.
Mm-hmm.
They are people from the industry, right? So they come from the same place, and therefore, with Brexit like looming on the horizon, and the lack of ability to move people between countries, like we've done since time immemorial, we recognised that we were going to be struggling for our staff as well. So we started to look at ways that we could be more efficient, and so we'd already put in place all of that online capacity. So when
I was going to ask that, actually, whether you had the technological capacity to make those changes instantly, or whether you had to sort of pedal faster to get there.
Not really, no. I mean, we had just finished. I mean, again, happenstance. I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not practicing witchcraft, but we had just finished a big project to be able to do all of our sign-ups and all of our documentation online with digital signatures. Like we were in testing. We were just finalising testing the week that lockdown happened. So within a week, within a few days actually, that went live.
Right. Okay.
So that was like, blimey, I was pretty lucky there. But in terms of the actual capability to do the online delivery, we've been training our staff up to be able to do that for over a year. So that was fortunate for us that we were ready.
It just shows if you're a forward-looking company, then actually, if the worst does happen and a situation occurs within a country, or as it is at the moment on a planet, then you're much more set up to do it. So what, out of all the changes that you've made and the digital transformations and the technological advances that you've had, do you think that you will keep all of those and continue as you are when we come out of lockdown and when the industry starts to restart? How do you see that working?
I think the whole thing for me about the hospitality industry, it's a social industry, and we like to get together, and we like to get together in the same room if we can, don't we? And I think all of my staff are saying to me that there's parts of the current situation which has given them pause for thought. They were tearing around the country. They were, and I guess that's to some extent my fault, because that's what I do as well. And I guess they're going to replicate my behaviour a little bit. But I think what they're seeing is that spending less time in a car tearing around, they can actually do a lot of their work is better done from in this type of environment. But there are elements that they absolutely wouldn't want to change. And doing a workplace observation, going in and helping somebody practically with their hands do that part of their role, you want to be there if you can. We can do it online, but we'd rather be there. So I reckon we'll probably end up shifting away from 100% working in people's workplaces to, well, at least for the initial period, there'll be none of that, because I guess we'll be the last people to get invited back in, really, is the truth there. And understandably so. But I think even in the future, when this starts to become a bit of a memory, I still think that my staff would like to have the capacity to be able to work from home 2 or 3 days a week, maybe, and just really choose those times when actually being next to someone is going to give you the best value and be best for best for the employer. I think as well, it uses the employer's time more effectively. It, if you're doing something online, you've got to plan it out really, really well, and you've only got an hour, and you don't really want to make it much longer than that because it all starts to get a bit like, it doesn't work quite as well. So there's ways of doing that and being really efficient about it. I think everybody likes it, really. So yeah, I think we won't 100%, but we will use a lot of these lessons. The other side of it as well, CO2 emissions. I've got a we operate a triple bottom line: people, planet, profit.
Right.
And I have a planet champion, and he's one of our trainers. And 1 week a month, he focuses on our impact on the planet. And in the first 2 weeks that we were closed down, we saved 3.5 tons of CO2.
Amazing,
just in our own fuel.
Yeah.
And just that, for me, it just says we can have an impact here that is very, very positive.
The impact on the environment has been amazing. Every other day I go for a cycle ride through London. I did it early this morning, actually, and the difference of how I can breathe cycling around London now compared to how I could breathe 7-8 weeks ago is immense. So I mean, I don't want to say there are positives of this situation, because obviously it's an awful virus and there are people dying every day, but there has to be some positives that we can take. And I listened to a really good podcast called Reasons to be Cheerful, which is Jeff Lloyd and Ed Miliband. I can recommend it. And they focus a lot on sort of the green economy. And one of the points they were making was, as the government comes out of lockdown, as they bring us out of lockdown, can they try to bring us out in a greener way? And I think that certainly from if I look at how much we normally spend on transport, as a company, there has to be a positive, and that's the one that I found so far for us.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the other big positive is that whole relationship thing that, at the moment, our learners know that our staff are there and ready and available. They know they're not in a traffic jam on the M6. They know that they're not, tied up in a meeting somewhere, because they've had to spend the day driving somewhere to go to a meeting. They know that that's not happening. So they're more willing to make day-to-day contacts. Yeah. And there's real value in that as well. There's real value in actually making yourself available. And our staff are kind of finding that they're able to do that more. So yeah, I think that as you say, it's absolutely horrible and horrendous. And where we have got learners who are working in care environments, then those guys, my heart, they're seeing some terrible things, and you wouldn't wish it on anybody. But we're fools if we don't try to take some of the positives forward, aren't we?
Yeah. So, Jill, have you seen any change in the sort of types of people that want to come and work for hospitality? I'm assuming that the employment is going to be very, very different coming out the other side of this for everyone.
Well, actually, yeah, we have, and it's really, really interesting. What we've seen is, I mean, can you imagine if you were a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old or somebody leaving university at the moment looking for a job, and you don't even want to think about it, do you? So what we found, we work with an organisation called Get My First Job, and they engage with education leavers predominantly in order to get them into different roles. And clearly, as of for apprentices in hospitality, at the moment they've got 8,500 people who have registered a positive interest in coming to work in the hospitality sector. I know, it's big numbers. It's big numbers. It's phenomenal. So what we've done is we've got together with Get My First Job, and we've got together with Hospitality Jobs UK, to basically, with our expertise as trainers, we've put together some pre-employment training that people can be getting on with. It's free to access online. So it's relatively light touch at this stage. Mm-hmm. And so they can get on with that, and they can start to show their interest. And as they go through the programme, then Hospitality Jobs UK are working with us as well to say, right, we've got these people and they're coming up to being ready to be taken on into the industry. So we're getting them, starting to get them a bit skilled up, really, getting them to understand what the industry is all about, so that when it all is over, and Brexit, which is still going to happen, by the way, it would appear, and when we're all struggling for staff, all of our clients are struggling for staff, there's going to be that pool of people that they can draw on. So yeah, that is different for us, not normally our sort of thing, but you know what, we're just trying to do what we can to serve the industry.
Well, it's more future proofing, isn't it? It's future proofing for you guys as business, but more to the point, it's future proofing for the industry as a whole to make sure that that pool of talent is there. And also to make sure that we're serving the people who want to join our industry in the best way so that they stay within it once they're in it. So, yeah,
Absolutely, 100%.
That's great. Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Jill Whittaker from HIT Training, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you on the other side of all this.
All right, take care, Katie. See you soon. Bye.